name is Sitabile Coleman. I'm the host for today. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Londiwe Dlamini, and I'll give her a few seconds to introduce herself and also introduce or share with us how she was introduced to Christ.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Londiwe Makhanya-Dlamini, as Sabila has introduced me. I am a medical doctor by profession, currently doing my second year internship. I'm a child of God. I dearly love God. And I have been saved for like the past year. Okay, it's been a while. So I grew up in a church environment, and I was raised in a home where my dad was a pastor, and then later on my mom also became a pastor. So, but then when you grow up in a family that is already like that introduces salvation to you, you're not automatically born like saved. So you have to make that decision by yourself to actually receive Christ as your Lord and Savior. So that decision for me happened, I think I was in grade 4, but at that time I don't think I really had a full understanding of what it was, because I just was touched by a story that was shared go Sunday school, and then I decided to give my life to Christ. And I remember it was a Passover weekend. 2007. So, okay, then I had a full encounter and got to experience who God really was when I was in grade 10. So that was when we were fellowshipping at our student Christian fellowship back at high school and boarding school. And there, that was really like where the Holy Spirit literally, came in and, gave me the gifts of tongues, and also just the ministry of being able to, preach His word and stand boldly in front of people and, proclaim the gospel. So I would say, even though I accepted Him in grade 4, but I got a full understanding and got to walk in that calling with a better understanding and better perspective in grade 10. Yeah.
So in your varsity career, like outside your parents, was there any challenges that you encountered in terms of challenging your faith when you got to varsity, or it was just a smooth sailing road?
To be honest, God was actually quite faithful. Like, to be honest, people usually have these stories where you go to "Unkulunkulu ngithathela," and now I'm here, like from the world. Like, I know I was deep in the world and deep in sin, and then God. But like I've been privileged to walk in the name that my parents gave me, like Londiwe, Ngalondeka, literally in that manner. Like since I was a child, from primary, high school till varsity, like even though I was exposed to these things, but even the people that God brought into my circle, because friends have a huge role. Like, I believe that those are the people that you go in there and then they just, they can either break or make you, to be quite honest. So, and God just introduced me to people who are of the same, mindset, same caliber, goal-driven, and also were pursuing God at that time, And there was just this one friend of mine who was really like on fire for God, I thought I was on fire for God, but she was really, and she also she told me a lot of like principles, including tithing, for example, which I didn't take as like, as, as compulsory, especially as a pastor's kid. I'm like, part of the money does kind of, to be quite honest, it does contribute to the parents' income in some way or the other. So I just thought, it's something I'll do when I have a full income, when I start working. Okay, I'm not trying to preach about tithing, but that was just, a side note. So she really taught me those principles. So I was really grateful for God for just bringing those people into my life. Hence, the journey was not as difficult as it would have been if being anababangani abarite in my circle, and yeah, pretty much that. I think, man, and there weren't a lot, like the common things that people were struggling with, because I believe in varsity there were just a lot, people have a lot of like coping mechanisms. Some it's alcohol and weed and whatever drug abuse. Some it's just, the groove life. Well, that also goes hand in hand. And some it's Jesus. And I was part of those people who the coping mechanism was literally Jesus. If I'm not studying, it's either I'm at church, like I've also got an opportunity to also serve in the worship team, also at a church that I was fellowshipping in. So even that community just kept me grounded, because you have to be accountable, not only to God but also to people as well. So so that also helped. Yeah.
What was the last song that you listened to?
I think it's there was this new album. It was Ngwele. I can't. It was the first time hearing it, so I can't really you could recall it. But I was just it's the Lavish Worship album that just came out today, so I was just giving it a try and listening to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question is, who do you look up to, or who do you see yourself in when you look at them, and why them in specific?
That is quite a difficult one. Do I really have someone like that? To be quite honest. That's really difficult. Oh my gosh, I don't know why, but it's just difficult. But I would, okay, it's a cliche, but I would, and it's my dad, so you would probably think I would relate more to a female, but it's the faith that my dad has. So I look up to him, the faith that he has. Like there's nothing that my dad believes uNkulunkulu won't do. Like I've seen, even I think that faith is the one that also just as a blessing. And also just we've seen the provision of God and in our lives through his faith. So I look up to him so much for that. And I didn't actually get to, appreciate that as much, because, when you're used to being with someone, you kind of take them for granted until you actually introduce them to someone else. And they're like, yo, your dad is... like your dad is actually something else. Like I learned a lot from your dad from just sitting with him for 5 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, he is, because the things that he says, you just take them for granted. It's like, man, you say this all the time. I mean, I'm used to hearing you preach even at church every Sunday, but so I would say it's my dad.
Okay, my next question is there something that has occurred in your life that you can attribute to God and not necessarily your own strength or your own intellect?
There's a lot that happened in my life though. I'd say my varsity journey academically. Let me just say that. I haven't really done much, to be honest, in my life. Like I feel like I just grew up, went to school, then from school started working, the typical journey. So I would say the varsity life though, like academically, because I wasn't the most of hardworking students, to be quite honest, but God just gave me the grace to gracefully make it through every year, to pass with acceptable marks every single year or every single semester, without having to put that much effort by myself. You'd find that we're writing on Monday and I'm literally attending rehearsals during the week and on Friday, and I'm there and I'm there on Sunday as well, and people are literally just frustrated and busy, but they're like, oh my God, I can't even move, I can't even do anything, I haven't even showered because I need but I would literally just go to church the day before, and so I would literally just attribute that to him. Like it wasn't my own strength, to be quite honest. It wasn't.
Okay. Our guest today, we're going to be focusing on the reliability of God. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I think it's just 5 questions, and then
okay.
So the first question is, how were you able to see the reliability of God in your life?
From how I grew up, because like I said, my dad was a pastor and my mom is a teacher. So that, you wouldn't expect much to come from that, like in terms of household income, because if someone is a full-time ministry, it means it's the other person who's like fixed, like they had a fixed income. So where I'm heading to with this is that we were literally living like how, like people who come from families where their parents are like both financially stable. So that's how the grace of God, like, and the reliability of God has been shown or proven. That's how I've seen God being reliable to an extent where you would ask anything from the parents and uNkulunkulu uzobanikeza amandla, even if there's nothing, but uzobanikeza amandla to actually grant them, and you wouldn't feel some type of way when you are with other kids, because that's also another just pressure on its own, you know, when you get exposed to the environment from high school. Varsity is even worse, you know. And so when you get to it, okay, these people are wearing these kind of clothes, or they have these kind of phones and whatnot. But I saw the reliability of God in providing and giving my parents means to provide for us, and in a way which we didn't feel somehow inadequate when we are around other people who are probably come from better, you know, like financially stable households. Yeah.
I want to slide in a question quickly.
Yeah.
With your relationship with your mom, or from your observances or observing your mom,
Yeah.
what have you taken out that you feel like you'll want or wish to implement in how you raise up your own
kids?
children?
I think it's the sternness. Like it's the, I don't want to say tough love, to be quite honest, but she was more stern than my dad, you know. So I think that is what I would take from her, that even though you have to do gentle parenting, but you also have to be, you know, like love, but also love with care. I don't know, ungaveli nje ube, I don't know if that makes sense. Like ungaveli just to, like the Bible says that konke kuvunyiwe but akusizi konke. So I feel like in her parenting, she also, you know, kind of played that role and implemented that and brought into our light and our attention, which, you know what, yeah, you can do everything, but not everything will be of good use to you, you know. So there has to be boundaries, you know. You can't just leave anyhow or anyhow. Yeah, and it wasn't even about to shower or anything. I would never, I don't remember being through that, but it's just from the character of a person that she is, you know. Yeah, so also being just a person who's bold and who's I don't know, daring, if I may put it that way. But God had just granted that strength, you know. Guti abe, no man, like whatever Usatane brings her way, or whatever that life throws her direction, but she always remained strong, and she remained and stood for utando kaNkulunkulu. So I feel like that's also what I would want to take, because I'm a crybaby. But sometimes life just needs you to, you know, toughen up. So yeah.
Okay, the next question is, what does God's ability to strengthen and protect you mean to you?
Okay, so I'll be just like David here. So like, God is our refuge, God is our strength. So in whatever challenge that I face, I know Guti, I can always go to Him as my firm foundation. And you know, there's a song by, I think, Maverick City, that says, Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Like when everything around me is shaken, like I know that he still stands, you know. So that's literally that I would literally, that song literally ministers to the question okhuluma ngayo right now, ukuthi strength sankulunkulu even when you are burnt out. Like, because mina, for example, in my journey of salvation, like I said, ukuthi then I grew up in an environment ekholwayo khona, and I was introduced to salvation at a very young age. But then as I grew, high school, yeah, varsity, yeah, still, on fire. But then of recent, like I would say as of last year, when you start working and then the working environment is just too demanding, and then you end up neglecting, that first love or the first calling, so that has also, and but I've still seen God sustaining me throughout, and I've still seen Him being reliable. Now it goes back to that question. I've still seen being reliable, because I was like, but I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing, like I'm not as on fire for you as I was anymore. To a point where I thought, you know what? I'm literally like the church that is being described there as being lukewarm. Because currently, I'm not cold, because I still believe in you. I still believe that you are Christ, and that you have saved me, and that you died and rose again. But I'm not as zealous as I used to. So I literally found myself in that state of lukewarmness, but He has still proven Himself to be a faithful God, nevertheless. So I really just, man, He's been so faithful in so many ways. Like, I can make countless examples, but He's been so faithful in spite of my inconsistency. I would say that, yeah.
The next question is, how has God shown His love to you?
So it kind of corresponds as well. I would say, okay, so it'll also go back to the indlela engi kulenga. Like, people, when they share their testimony on their journey of salvation, they will refer to the life that they lived before and the life that they're now living, after. And I used to think, man, is there anything bad that's going to happen maybe in the future? Nami, and then I'll get to testify. But I was like, this is, but this is a testimony on its own. The fact that God has kept you and has kept you grounded from such an early age till now, that on its own is a testimony to people. Like, you don't need to go to the world first and taste it and then come, and then in order for you to testify of the greatness of God. So that on its own is just uthando laNkulunkulu for me, and you always find people saying, like, things are happening so fast in your life, and I'm like, yeah, even I'm just, because like I said, it's I feel like I've been walking the typical, I don't know, man, like journey or growing up journey, even though sometimes when you look at, because comparison is a thief of thief of joy, because you end up comparing yourself to other people that are maybe like at your age but are doing things, and you're just like, but at the same time you're like, I know, man, God has been faithful, because you look at where He has taken you and how far you've come, and where He's still taking you. So that on its own proves uthando lakhe, to be able to have already accomplished, even though it's not much, but to me and to God, I feel like that's a lot at such a young age, so you really see what God actually cares, and God actually loves me, like, yeah, God actually loves me. Yeah.
I really love what you just said, your testimony is just as powerful as umuntu who went in the world and tasted everything, because I feel like there's always some sort of rejoicing when a person comes back from the world, and we don't actually acknowledge the person who has
been there. True.
We always like happy. This person came from the world.
Yeah.
We're not saying that
it's bad. Yeah.
But True. It's actually something worth celebrating.
Because it's not an easy journey. Like that like I said, that inconsistency and lukewarmness, especially after this. I don't want to blame it on COVID, but I mean, COVID did impact us. Yeah, it did impact us a lot, a lot. So, and a lot of people literally fell endleleni, and they literally bayekukholwa because so many things were happening in their lives, and they literally thought uNkulunkulu was no longer faithful, and they thought others. It's either bad things started happening, they lost people, they lost their loved ones, they lost their jobs and whatever, and then they lost faith in God because of that. Others, at that period of not fellowshipping, because that, like I said, like you're accountable to God and to people, so it kind of gave them, like liberty, they can do whatever. Then they started tasting and going back to the things that they used to be doing, So like it hasn't been a smooth journey, to be honest. Like it hasn't been a smooth journey. I'm not talking just for myself. I'm sure you can also relate, and other believers out there. But yeah, still God is faithful. So yeah, we should really do acknowledge that it's a privilege.
And then how has fellowshipping with other saints helped you grow or sustained you in your journey with Christ?
Yo, a lot. Well, I mean, the funny part is, because like I said, it was okay. I grew up in another church where my parents were pastoring. Then when I went to varsity, I would go to a closer church where it was to where I was like studying. Yeah, well. So from that to that, okay, that's fine. At like the church in the church where my parents were pastoring, it's easy to portray yourself as something that you're not, because I mean you're the pastor's kid. So it's easy to pretend to be something that you're not, because you have to portray a perfect picture of this perfect person, So, and then when you move on to another environment where people don't know you, so you can literally just be anyone, but to still remain faithful to uNkulunkulu, even in an environment where it's not the one that you're familiar with, and it's a different one, or it's a different church. That on its own is also on its own, So moving to that, and like I said, to serving as well. Serving, I feel like that was the thing that actually kept me going a lot. Even though there was a point where my friend was like, hey, you shouldn't get too busy, because once the busyness comes down, and then there's stillness, that's where you actually see, what relationship is actually not as good as I thought it was, And I actually saw that happening when, I think it was, last year. Like I said, it was the transition from varsity to now the working environment. I was no longer serving, even though I was fellowshipping at a church where I was fellowshipping here at PMB. Firstly, you moved from Durban. I moved from Durban to PMB. So that transition on its own. Then I moved to a different church. And I wasn't planning on serving there, because I'm like, I'm not a full member anyway. I'm just fellowshipping on Sundays. So that on its own, now you're just sitting there. And I'm not used to just sitting there and being part of the congregation, Like you, at some point, feel like a spectator. So now it's like, way not to actively try and keep the relationship going, because a community like do now, you're good to, okay, now we have rehearsals on Tuesday. It's not just rehearsals on but it's also growing in the word, you sharing the word, and you're also growing in that. And I also we found home cells as well, and what I also found to be very helpful was there were these online Zoom sessions, that's prayers, that we started with a group of my other pastors, like PK friends. So it started in 2020, and at that time it was, like going, because 2020 was quite rough, like it was when COVID hit, and really we were not fellowshipping at church, so everything was online. So it really kept us going. That time, like, it really kept us going. 2021 as well, like, because we'd meet like every Friday online, and it was really helpful. And then as last year started, like I said, the business now came in, and they started making excuses to find time to meet in this space, and then that's when the inconsistency also started coming in, and you make an excuse to go see, no man, like, churches are now open, so I would be attending physically a physical prayer instead of an online prayer, even though sometimes that's not the truth, But I would say also that prayer group also kept me going, like at a time where I needed, God the most. So, yeah, man, that's the important. That is importance of the community to me. Like they are of fellowshipping with other believers. When it's Bible, do not neglect ukuhlanganyela and fellowshipping with other believers, like how the others did. Literally means that you can't say good you're saved and just say I'm gonna not go to church. I'm gonna pray in my own private space. It won't work at all because you need to. Even though we measure ourselves according to God's word, like our growth or our journey, it's how far we've grown in relation to the word of God and the God standard. But being with other people as well, as well, and who have grown like more than you get to be inspired by that, Other than so, if you say later, you think, man, I'm on the right track, and you're just fooling yourself, yeah. So yeah.
The last question is, what does it mean to have God as our sustainer?
God as our sustainer. How do I? Okay. God is our sustainer. It's everything I always I always think of a song, sorry. Literally, because it's how I relate to it because it ministers in that particular thing. It's just Kulumangai. It's the song by Transformation Church Worship, You Sustain, Yeah, it says you sustain in the middle of it all. You remain the same through the rain. You remain, you sustain. So, and it says that your promises always come through. Like, it's not dependent on me, but it's reliant on God, So that phrase on its own, because like I said, in my consistency, God was still reliable. God still sustained me, So I believe that's what the God sustain, and so the meaning of the word ukuthi sustains us means even in our unfaithfulness, even though sometimes we put him in this one-sided relationship where he's the one who's always just pouring and pouring, and we are not as proactive about it, but he still sustains us nevertheless, because he's a man of his word. He never changes, and he's God. He's not like us anyway. We will have our shortfalls and our shortcomings, but he's still God, and in that sense, that is how he sustains us. So basically, sustain on Kulukulu, basically like how I've been explaining. Yeah. So.
Okay. Lastly, what would you share with the younger version of yourself?
I would say, I would say they didn't do quite bad. to be quite honest, like now that I kind of think about it, now that I've been talking about it, sometimes you just don't reflect on how far you've come. But I would say that they didn't do so bad. Like, they could have done better, but I don't know how. No, man. Like, I'm trying to think. I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but I'm just trying to think, how. Maybe in terms of timidness at some point. Yeah, I would say that. Like, to be bold, to be bold. Actually, that's not my younger self. My younger self was actually quite better. I would say that to me now. To actually be bold, like to not be scared to start something, and even if it fails, but to still continue with it, or to be able to try isn't out, especially if God has called you for a particular ministry. So I would say to myself, Uguti, don't be scared to just start. Like even for example, for this podcast, I would make an example with you in this podcast. You know, you were daring to start, and you were just like, I'm going to do this. You know, this is what God is calling me to do. So Nami, I would say, actually, it's not to my younger self, to my older self. Just stop being timid and actually live out to who God has called you to be. You know, yeah, because yeah, man, I would say I get intimidated quite easily, especially when you see, like I said, this comparison thing can actually kill a lot of things. Because you see people, but it's not in a bad way as well. Because when you see people on social media, like young people who are saved, like they boldly, proclaiming Christ to the world, those IG lives or IG stories, and they're like, why aren't I doing this? I'm like, yo, what did I say to God on Judgment Day when you have to be accountable for so many, you're accountable for so many souls, but you actually didn't take part in winning them. So I would say to now, Londi, stop being timid and start being bold. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We finished. We're done.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye. Thanks. Okay. Yeah.